Shimmering Skies comes out this week, and Ravensburger has revealed the rest of the set. Along with all of the reveals today, I am also going to talk about my initial impressions of the set at the very end of this video. But this video will have been created before the set actually comes out, so I'll need a week or two to play a few drafts and some constructed to see how I really feel about it. But anyway, let's not waste any more time and let's take a look at the rest of the Shimmering Skies cards. I'm going to try and keep my opinions on these to a minimum because we have so many to get through, but I will spend a little more time on the more interesting ones. First up, we have Medal of Heroes. It is an inkable 2-cost sapphire item, and it reads, "Congratulations, soldier. Exert this card and pay 2 ink. Banish this item. Chosen character of yours gets +2 lore this turn." This card feels okay. In draft, I would actually probably play this just to be more aggressive with a character that maybe had a lot more lore, just to really maximize their impact. I don't know if this sees a ton of constructed play, but it might be good with something like Tamatoa, since it would give him 2 extra and be able to go right back into your hand after Tamatoa quests. So yeah, I'm overall pretty positive on this card. All right, next up we have Sven. This is an inkable 4-cost amber card, Sven Reindeer Steed. He has 3 strength, 3 willpower, and quests for 2 lore. He has 1 ability, which reads Reindeer Games. When you play this character, you may ready chosen character. They can't quest or challenge for the rest of this turn. This is essentially LeFou Instigator in Amber, which is nice. Although, since you can't quest or challenge after using this, it means that it maybe only goes in something like Steel Song, either to protect a character who is exerted from being challenged next turn, or to enable a character to challenge or quest, be readied, and then either stay safe or sing a song. All in all, I think this is a pretty decent... I think this card is pretty decent stat-wise. Questing for 2 is pretty nice, but the 4-drop slot in Steel Song is pretty competitive with things like Rapunzel gifted with healing. So whether or not this sees constructed play kind of remains to be seen, but as for draft, it's statted really well and the ability can really be strong in draft. So yeah, I would run this in draft for sure. Next up, Break Free. This is an inkable 1-cost action card in Ruby. It reads, deal 1 damage to chosen character of yours. They gain rush and +1 strength this turn. This sort of feels like a Vitalosphere for the damage Ruby deck. Whether or not that deck becomes good in the next meta is really hard to say. This also isn't a song, so it makes it a bit harder to recommend, but as an action, it is at least cheap and inkable. My gut tells me that this won't see much play. In draft, I could see running it if I had a compatible card to go with it, but it would probably be one of the first cards I cut from the draft deck, to be honest. All right, we finally got the Fairy Mothers from Sleeping Beauty making an appearance in the game. So this is Merryweather, Good Fairy. She is an inkable 1-cost emerald card with 1 strength, 2 willpower, and can quest for 1. She has 1 ability, which reads Ray of Hope. When you play this character, you may pay 1 ink to give chosen character +2 strength this turn. This just makes me sad, because I love Merryweather. She's such a funny character in the movie, but this card just does her dirty, and I'm not a fan of it. You would feel bad playing this on turn 1, and honestly, whatever color you're playing in conjunction with this probably has a card that will give a character +2 strength without paying the extra fee. In draft, I guess I would play it if I was desperate for 1-drop cards, but yeah, I'm not really a fan of this. All right, so now we've got some more Wreck-It Ralph cards revealed. This is Fix-It Felix Jr. It's an inkable 3-cost amber card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and can quest for 1, and he has the ability Bodyguard. It's not super interesting. I mean, it's a French vanilla card, and for those of you that don't know what a French vanilla card is, it's basically just a card that only has a keyword attached to it. So in this instance, Bodyguard. I would run this in draft because Bodyguard is always just awesome in draft and protects a lot of your other maybe lower cost, higher questing characters and stuff. But other than that, it's not too exciting. There's a lot of other more exciting 3-drop cards you could play. And this card sort of just functions as a shift target for the next card we're going to talk about. But even then, I think there's a better shift target for this next card. But let's just get into it. This is the Floodborn Fix-It Felix. He is an inkable 5-cost amber card with 4 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 1. He can shift for 3, and he has 1 ability, Building Together. Your locations get +2 willpower. The stats are okay. The lore is a bit low for a 5-drop, but I don't think you're really going to be questing with this guy. This card goes in some sort of location deck with the next Fix-It Felix that we're going to talk about. This card goes in some sort of location deck with the next Fix-It Felix that we're going to talk about. So in that deck, I could see it being a good support card, but it's not going to really go anywhere else. In draft, I think this card's actually okay. All right, the last Fix-It Felix. This is Fix-It Felix Jr., a inkable 2-drop Amber card with 1 strength and 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability called Oh My Land. When you play this character, if you have a location in play, draw a card. This also goes in the hypothetical Amber location deck, and I actually think this is a way better shift target than the previous 3-drop Felix that we just talked about 2 cards ago. There are a lot more 1-cost locations these days, and I'm sure more are going to be printed. So location turn 1, this turn 2, draw a card is not that bad, since dealing with locations is really hard to do in the early game, and even worse for your opponent if you're on the play. So yeah, I think this card's pretty decent and goes in a hypothetical deck that could exist at some point. Not sure if I'd run it in draft since the stats aren't great, but I guess if I had a 1-drop location that I was playing in draft, I would maybe play this just to get the extra card draw, but yeah, I like this card for what it is. All right, next up, the man himself, Wreck-It Ralph. He's an uninkable 7-cost Amber card with 6 strength, 7 willpower, and he quests for 2 lore. He has 1 ability, I've got the coolest friend. When you play this character, return a character card from your discard to your hand. If that card is a princess character card, gain 2 lore. I actually kind of like this card. I could see it doing well in draft, although the ability is going to heavily depend on how many princesses are in set 5, but ones that immediately come to mind are Vanellope. 7 is a bit expensive, and you can't shift this, but he does quest for 2 lore and has decent stats for his cost. So I think this is a fairly good bomb card in draft, you know, if you can get up to 7 ink, which is actually kind of difficult. That's maybe the one downside I would see. In constructed, I don't know if this sees much play, but, you know, if you have a princess-heavy deck at some point, this probably goes in there. Next up, we've got a pretty interesting location that works with a few cards in this set. This is Sugar Rush Speedway. It is an uninkable 1-cost location with a move cost of 0, and 5 willpower. It has no passive lore. It has the ability on your marks. Once per turn, you may exert chosen character here and deal them 1 damage to move them to another location for free. I think you basically mostly use this in conjunction with the Sugar Rush Racers. However, there's a chance we get some interesting synergy out of this card down the road, like maybe years from now. Things like Donald Duck Not Again can get some extra lore by moving him here. The only problem is that you need to have a second location in play in order to move them between. All in all, this is an interesting card that I think could have some cool interactions in the future. But as for draft, I don't think I would play this. Okay, next up is King Candy. He is an inkable 1-cost Sapphire card, King Candy Sovereign of Sugar. He has 2 strength, 2 willpower, and quests for 1, and is a vanilla card. There's nothing interesting really to say about this other than the fact that it's a shift target for a much more interesting King Candy card, so we're just going to move on to that Floodborn card. And this is King Candy Sweet Abomination. He's an uninkable 5-cost Sapphire card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 2 lore. He can shift for 3, and he has 1 ability, Changing the Code. When you play this character, you may draw 2 cards, then put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. This card rules. It basically allows you to filter your deck a bit and also filter out dead cards from your hand, which can be incredibly valuable. I think this card will probably see some play in Sapphire constructed decks. I also think that this card will see a lot of play in draft, since draw is really important, and you're more likely to have dead cards in your hand in draft. So overall, yeah, I think this is a really, really cool card, and it's uncommon, which is crazy. Next up, we've got another song, and one of my favorite songs from Tangled. This is When Will My Life Begin? It is an inkable 3-cost Steel song, and it reads, chosen character can't challenge during their next turn. Draw a card. This card's not bad. It does draw a card, which is always a huge bonus, especially for a song. I guess what's really going to matter is if there's a card in the meta that you really want to prevent from challenging. So I wouldn't say this card's bad. Rather, I just don't really know where it goes yet and why. But there's a chance it sees some play if a specific card that is about challenging gets out of hand. In draft, I would probably play it since it is card draw and you end up doing a lot more combat in that format. So in draft, yeah, I would say this card's actually really decent. Next up, we have Rudy, Groove Disruptor. He's an inkable 1-cost steel card, 2 strength, 2 willpower, and 1 lore pip, and he's also a vanilla. There's nothing super interesting about this card other than it's very funny and I love the lore text. Anyway, let's move on. All right, well, I guess it wouldn't be a Lorcana set without a high-cost Prince Philip card. This is Prince Philip, Swordsman of the Kingdom, I think is what this translates to. The translation says, it is an inkable 7-cost emerald card with 3 strength and 9 willpower. It quests for 3 lore and has 2 abilities. Its first ability is Dragon Conspiracy or something, or Conspire, something like that. Dragon Slayer, not totally sure. But it reads, when you play this card, banish an enemy dragon of your choice. His second ability is Take Advantage. When this character challenges a damaged character, ready this character after the challenge. This is a kind of interesting card that could be a tech card if a specific dragon ever gets out of hand in the meta. You just kind of pop this in just in case. It can also do a bit of work in the Emerald Steel Ping deck, which could become a thing next set, but we'll have to see. It's also inkable, which is nice. So I would probably play this in a bomb. I would probably play this as a bomb in draft. And there's a good chance it sees some minimal constructed play in Emerald Steel. So yeah, overall pretty interesting. Next up, another Pete card. This is Pete Steamboat Rival. He's an inkable 7-cost ruby card with 6 strength, 6 willpower, and quest for 2 lore. He has 1 ability, which is Disappear. When you play this character, if you have a character named Pete in play, you may banish chosen opposing character. After mentioning it directly in my 5 franchises video, I'm really happy to see more Toon characters making an appearance. I don't really think this sees play in Constructed, just since we don't have really good Pete cards at the moment, other than the one that we talked about in the last video. In draft, though, I would probably take it just because it's well statted, but I maybe would cut it if I got a better bomb. Next up is another Basil card. This is Basil, Practice Detective. It's an inkable 1-cost Sapphire card with 2 strength, 1 willpower. He quests for 1 lore, and he has support, so another French vanilla. This is actually decent for a 1-drop. Support isn't the greatest keyword in our current meta, but Basil having 2 strength with support on a 1-drop is actually significant and means he could probably help take something out by turn 2 or 3 possible. He's also a target for the Floodborn Basil from set 2, so yeah, it's not bad. I would actually probably play this in draft. Next up, a brand new Madam Mim card. This is Madam Mim Elephant. She's an inkable 4-cost Amethyst card. She has 3 strength and 7 willpower and quests for 1. She has 2 abilities. The first one, A Little Game. When you play this character, banish her or return another chosen character of yours to your hand, so like all the other Madam Mim cards. And Sneaky Move. At the start of your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from this character to chosen opposing character. The fact that this card has 7 willpower as a 4-drop is kind of nuts. I don't think this replaces Fox in an Amethyst deck just because it's such a powerful card and comes down a turn earlier. However, I do think if the moving damage archetype ever gets going, this is just another good bounce card with a lot of health, so it's going to be kind of sticky. It also de-incentivizes your opponent from just trying to whittle this down with damage because they can't do it all at once. Once the turn starts, you're moving some of that damage over to their side of the board, so it really stops them from wanting to do that. So this is a really good inclusion if the ping deck ever becomes a problem. So yeah, I think this is a pretty cool card that may see some play in specific decks. This will also be really good in draft, honestly, so yeah, I would play this 100%. All right, next up, we've got 6 different item cards, 1 for each ink color. I like some of them and don't really like others. So I'm going to try and keep one as brief as possible, just so we can blaze right through them. First is Amber Chromacon. It is an inkable 2-cost Amber card, obviously, with 1 ability, which says Amber Light. Exert this card, remove up to 1 damage from each of your characters. This seems okay. Removing damage from each character is really nice. Whether it sees any play remains to be seen, but I could see it doing something in draft and later in some constructed decks. Next is Amethyst Chromacon. It is an inkable 2-cost Amethyst item which has one ability which reads Amethyst Light. Exert this card, each player may draw a card. This isn't bad. You could use this as a bargaining chip in something like multiplayer, which is kind of fun. Like, hey, please don't attack my, you know, whatever. Don't kill my Diablo and I'll let you all draw cards or something. It also works well in Amethyst Emerald, especially if you have a Diablo in play, so your opponent draws one card and you draw two instead when you use this. It's interesting and not bad. I would probably play it in draft, even though it could go wrong if not used sparingly, but overall I like it. Then we've got Emerald Chromacon. This is an uninkable 3-cost Emerald item. It has one ability, Emerald Light. During your opponent's turn, whenever one of your characters is banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. This is kind of cool. It's one of the first times we're seeing effects that specifically trigger on your opponent's turn. It could see play in some niche decks, but ultimately I feel like I'm a little torn on it, but time will tell. Next up, the Ruby Chromacon. It is an inkable 1-cost Ruby item that reads Ruby Light. Exert this card, chosen character gets +1 strength this turn. I love this card. I would play 1 or 2 of these in Constructed just to help deal with some of my opponent's threats. I would play this in draft in a heartbeat. It's inkable. Like, what else do you want me to say? This card's really cool. Next up, the Sapphire Chromacon. It is an uninkable 4-cost Sapphire item. This one actually has 2 abilities. Its first ability is Powering Up. This item enters play exerted. And its second ability, Sapphire Light. Exert this card and pay 2 ink, banish one of your items, and gain 2 lore. This item is also pretty cool and gives items a different win con besides just Tamatoa. But it also does just synergize with Tamatoa pretty well because you could, for instance, you could exert this, get rid of Popsicle or something, gain 2 lore, then quest with Tamatoa and get the Popsicle back. So you get a bunch of lore, draw a card. It's a really cool item. I'm actually really into it. Lastly, we have the Steel Chromacon. It is an uninkable 6-cost steel item. It has one ability, Steel Light. Exert this card, deal 1 damage to chosen character. I like the ability on this card, but 6 is so expensive. I don't really think this sees play unless you have some reliable way to cheat it into play. I don't know, this one's tough. My gut says that I don't really like it. I'm unlikely to play it in draft either because it's just really expensive and I just probably wouldn't play it unless I just desperately needed to hit 40 cards. Even though it could put in some work, but with all the healing items in this set that are just so easy to do, chances are this probably will not do you much good in draft at all. Constructed, it's sort of a we'll see, but I'm not holding my breath. Next up, Rush Rafiki, he's back. Rafiki, Shaman Duelist. He's an uninkable 4-cost Amethyst card with 1 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Rush and 1 ability, Surprising Skill. When you play this character, he gains Challenger for this turn. You could argue that this isn't as good as Fox, but it does remove some things more efficiently, at least on the turn it's played. It also has 1 more lore than Fox or Zeus, so that's nice. It's hard to say whether this sees a lot of Constructed play. In draft, this is 100% an amazing card, and you should play it all the time. But I don't know if I would run this in a Constructed deck at the moment. We have Foxes and Mauis already, and they sort of take up all the space and kind of get what we want done. So I don't know if you play this really, unless you just don't have those cards, but you know. Either way, really great draft card. 100% pick it every time. Next up, we've got another location. This is Tropical Rainforest Jaguar's Lair. It is an inkable 3-cost location with a move cost of 1, 6 willpower, and 1 passive lore. It has 1 ability that reads Snack Time. Opposing damaged characters gain Reckless. Not a huge fan of this card. Giving your opponents Reckless can be really good, except that they can just attack this and then you won't be giving them Reckless anymore, so I don't really know what the point is. Maybe I'm just not thinking of some great use cases for this. I don't know, let me know in the comments, but I'm not convinced that this is very good, but, you know, at least it has 1 passive lore, I guess. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm not feeling this one at all. All right, we've got another Namari card. This is Namari Resolute Daughter. She's an uninkable 9-cost steel card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and she quests for 3. She has Resist 3 and 1 ability called I Really Have No Other Choice. For each opposing character banished to a challenge this turn, pay 2 less ink to play this character. This is tough because how many characters are you realistically going to banish in a challenge in one turn on the regular? And, you know, it happens, but regularly, you know, it's hard to say. That means you'll have to have some decent stuff on the board to get this cheap enough to play in the first place. But, you know, when it does hit the board, it will be pretty hard to get rid of it with resist 3 and not being in Medusa range. I'm not sure about this one. I feel like I'll need to play with it and see. So it's kind of a maybe, but yeah, if you can get this on the board, this is going to be the most annoying card for your opponent to get rid of. All right, next up, we've got a couple Simba cards to go over. This one is Simba, Adventurous Successor. It is an uninkable 1-cost ruby card with 2 strength and 1 willpower. And he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, I Laugh in the Face of Danger. When you play this character, chosen character gets +2 strength this turn. I like this card. Obviously, you shouldn't be playing it on turn 1 at all, but when you need to buff a character and also want to leave a body on the board, this is a nice choice. The stats are not great, but the utility of it is pretty nice. So yeah, I actually like it. All right, and the second Simba card is Simba, Lost Prince. It is an inkable 3-cost card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and it quests for 1 lore. It has 1 ability, Face the Past. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card. Pretty cool card. Getting to draw is always nice. He has 2 strength though, which isn't amazing, but it's decent. I would 100% play this in draft. Whether or not this is constructed play, very hard to tell. Very hard to tell, but pretty cool card nonetheless. Next up, we have a new franchise. joining Lorcana. It is Brother Bear, a movie I have never seen. The first card is Coda, Talkative Cub. It is an inkable 2-cost amber card with 2 strength, 1 willpower, and quests for 2. Its ability is Tell Everybody. During opponents' turns, you can't lose lore. Pretty interesting card. It's got really low health, which isn't amazing, but it does have 2 lore, so there's that. Losing lore isn't really prevalent in the game right now, so I don't know how much utility this card really has currently, but maybe one day down the road, this will be really good. Next up, we have Kanai. I'm assuming I'm saying that right. Kanai, Big Brother. It's an inkable 2-cost amber character with 1 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1 lore. His ability is Brothers Forever. While this character is exerted, your characters named Coda can't be challenged. I don't really like this card. It's wholly dependent on whether or not you're running Coda, but at this point, I don't think I would play this. Not really a fan. Next up, another French vanilla card. We've got Rut. Northern Moose is an inkable 4-cost amber character with 3 strength, 4 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has support. It's not bad. I would for sure play this in draft. In constructed, probably not. There's just a lot of things that go in the 4-drop slot that I'd rather be playing. But in draft, yeah, 100% I'd play this. And again, another moose. This is Took, Northern Moose. He's an inkable 4-cost amber card with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1. And he's a vanilla. Once again, decent in draft. Probably will not play in constructed. Next up, we have Tanana, Wise Woman. She's an inkable 2-cost sapphire card with 1 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1 and has 1 ability. Your brothers need guidance. When you play this character, you may remove up to 1 damage from chosen character or location. Not a fan of this. I don't think it's all that great. Probably won't see much play. Would probably only play this in draft if I was desperate for 2-drops or I just really wanted the ability to heal some of my characters, but yeah, not a huge fan of this. And the last Brother Bear card is Danahi. I hope I am saying that right. Avenging Brother. He's an uninkable 5-cost ruby character with 7 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2, and he's a vanilla. This card is not bad for a vanilla. In constructed, I wouldn't play this over Maui or Hercules. But in draft, this is an amazing bomb card that I would 100% put in my deck. This thing will do some work. Next up, we have another pretty good draft card. It is Chaka, Impressive Daughter, an inkable 4-cost sapphire card with 4 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 2, and she's a vanilla. This checks all the boxes for a good draft card. Decent stats, it's inkable, it's boring, but it's the kind of workhorse that will help you win draft games, believe it or not. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it for that. But in constructed, I seriously doubt to cease play. All right, next up, we've got a really interesting and cool card. It's Chica, Dedicated Mother. It is an uninkable 2-cost sapphire character with 2 strength and 1 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has support and 1 ability, which is 1 on the way. During your turn, when you put a card into your inkwell, if it's the second card you've put into your inkwell this turn, you may draw a card. It's fairly reliable card draw for Sapphire in the early game, since they want to be ramping ideally by turn 2 or 3. So this will just help you replenish your hand as you ramp. So I'm a big fan of this. I think this is really strong, one of the stronger and more useful rares in the set, to be honest. In draft, it's going to be really hard to make this work because there's not really a lot of ramp, from what I remember this set. So in draft, unfortunately, this probably isn't very good, but in constructed, 100%. This is gonna see play somewhere. All right, next up we've got another vanilla. This is Maleficent Vengeful Sorceress. She is an inkable 2-cost amethyst character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and quest for 2. It's all right, again, it's another okay draft card. It goes into Maleficent heavy deck for shift targets, but yeah, this vanilla is not too much to say about it, but I would play it in draft. Next up, we've got actually a pretty interesting action. This is Royal Tantrum. It is an uninkable 4-cost sapphire card. It reads, banish any number of your items, then draw a card for each item banished this way. This feels like a plausible one-of tech card in a sapphire items deck, but even then, you already have pretty reliable ways to get rid of your items to draw cards, like with Hiram, basically. So I don't know if this really sees much play. I certainly probably wouldn't play it in draft, that's for sure. Next up is this iconic cup and potion from Snow White. I believe this translates to Strength Potion. It is an inkable 1-cost ruby item with 1 ability called Disgusting Concoction. Spend 1 ink, banish this item. Chosen character gains +3 strength this turn. If chosen character is a villain, they gain 4 strength instead. This is okay, I guess. I don't know. I feel like you'd probably prefer to just play something like Vitalosphere. In draft, I could actually see running one of these just in case to help you remove a really big threat, but I probably wouldn't go out of my way to grab it from a pack. But I could see it being good in draft. In constructed, I don't know. Next up is a really expensive song. It's Don't Let the Frostbite Bite. It is an inkable 7-cost ruby song that reads, ready all your characters, they can't quest for the rest of this turn. I think you put this in an amber ruby deck with an Ariel that can sing it. Otherwise, it's just really expensive to use. In draft, I feel more comfortable running this since it's inkable, so it won't just be sitting in my hand as a dead card, but getting to 7 ink on draft is really hard, and you need to already have a decent board ready to go for this to be effective, and you need to be able to sing it or just hard cast it from the get-go, and 7 is pretty expensive and hard to sing. So yeah, the more I talk about it, probably wouldn't run this in draft without a reliable target to sing it with, and even then, probably will just end up being ink most of the time, so I don't know. Not feeling it. Next up is Night Howler Rage. It is an inkable 3-cost emerald action card that reads, draw a card. Chosen character gains Reckless during their next turn. I could see this being pretty okay. In draft, it's kind of nice. In draft, it's pretty nice. You get to draw a card and you just give something Reckless and hopefully make them ram into something. So, it's pretty decent. All right, next up is Gaston, Pure Paragon. He is an uninkable 9-cost ruby character with 10 strength and 6 willpower. He quests for 2 lore. He has the ability Rush and 1 other ability. He has Rush and 1 ability called A Man Among Men. For each damaged character you have in play, you may pay 2 less to play this character. I'm not convinced that you'll have that many damaged characters in play for this to work. Granted, you only need 1 near the end of the game to bring this down to a 7 cost, which in the end of the game, it's not that bad. It does just die to a Maui though, which could make all that hard work of you bringing this out onto the field vanish in the blink of an eye. I don't know if this is good or not, to be honest, but we'll have to wait and see. In draft, I don't know if I'd ever play this just because it'd be so difficult to play and it's uninkable, but man, if you got it down in a draft, you might win the game just straight up. Next, the Sword Released is a ruby item, an uninkable 3-cost. It has 1 ability. It says, Power Anointed. At the start of your turn, if you have a character in play with more strength than each opposing character in play, Each opponent loses 1 lore, and you gain a lore equal to the lore lost. This is sort of neat. It reminds me of Flynn Frenemy, but with a lore drain twist as well. I do think that for lore drain to become good, there sort of needs to be some benefit for me to draining my opponent's lore, and this gets sort of close. Is there a chance to see his constructed play sometime in the future? Yeah, maybe, if that becomes more of a thing. In this set, probably not. I also probably would not play this in a draft setting. All right, next up, Merlin's Carpetbag. This is an uninkable 5-cost sapphire item with 1 ability, Hockety Pockety. Exert this card, pay 1 ink, return an item card from your discard to your hand. I don't think this is all that great. There are better ways in Sapphire item decks to get items back from your discard pile. I mean, like Tamatoa, everyone's running Tamatoa, so. And in draft, this is basically unplayable. I would stay very clear of this. Next up is another location. This is Elsa's Ice Palace, Place of Solitude. I always get those mixed up. This is an uninkable 3-cost location with a move cost of 1, 4 willpower, and 1 passive lore, and 1 ability, Eternal Winter. When you play this location, choose an exerted character. While this location is in play, that character can't ready at the start of their turn. Kind of interesting location here, that for sure is very weak and can die to a lot of things. However, it can potentially lock a character out of the game for a while if your opponent can't really deal with it. It also does come with that 1 passive lore, which is always nice. For Constructed, I don't know where this really slots into. I mean, we do have a lot of cards that want to exert your opponent's cards coming in Amethyst next set, so there could be something there. And, you know, possibly into a deck that includes one of the Ana cards that we're going to talk about a little later in this video. In draft, this might actually be a decent play on turn 3, because there aren't things like Madam M. Fox to just get rid of it, so you might be able to lock one of your opponent's characters out for a turn or 2, so this is actually kind of nice. I don't know why you'd move anyone here unless they got a bonus from a location, but yeah, this is kind of an interesting card. I'm very curious to see where it ends up. Next is Glimmer versus Glimmer. This is an uninkable 4-cost action card that reads, banish chosen character of yours to banish chosen character. This card could be cool as it lets you trade, but you are spending 2 cards, you know, to get rid of 1. So it's just inherently a 2-for-1 all the time, and in that sense, it's kind of bad. So I don't know. I'm not really convinced that this is that great. Next, we have Magicka Dispel, Cruel Sorceress. This is an inkable 4-cost Amethyst character with 2 strength, 5 willpower. She quests for 1, and she has the ability Playing with Power. During opponent's turns, if an effect would cause you to discard 1 or more cards from your hand, you don't discard. Where was this card last set when Bucky was just rampaging? Anyway, I don't think this completely negates a future discard deck. Rather, I think it just kind of helps keep it in check. But I also don't think that this is the silver bullet for an entire archetype either. Rather, this might just be a tech piece in some future Amethyst decks if discard ever really gets out of hand. I don't think this will see very much play next set, but maybe in the future after it might. In draft, it's probably not good enough to see regular play, unfortunately, but I think there is potentially a sort of techie metagame place for this card in the future. Next, one of my favorite card arts, maybe in the whole set. This is Arthur, King Victorious. He is an uninkable 7-cost steel character with 3 strength and 6 willpower. He quests for 3. He can shift for 5, and he has 1 ability, Knighted by the King. When you play this character, chosen character gains Challenger 2 and Resist 2, and can challenge ready characters this turn. This card has a lot of potential, and I really want it to be good in a knight deck or a combat heavy deck, but even then it doesn't really matter because being able to challenge your opponent's ready characters is really, really strong while giving them Challenger and Resist. It's really going to depend on the meta, but overall I think this is a great card with decent stats that enables you to take out a character that your opponent might be protecting with something like Ward. Overall, I'm actually really positive on this, but I also want to Overall, I'm really positive on this, and I could see it seeing a lot of constructed play, and honestly, some play in draft as well. But I also want to see how the meta shakes out, but I do think that you're going to see this card around. All right, this is Tipo, Growing Sun. It's an inkable 2-cost Sapphire character with 1 strength and 2 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has 1 ability, Measure Me Again. When you play this character, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell, face down, and exerted. This is kind of interesting as a ramp card. It's like a 1-use Fishbone Quill. Will this see play as opposed to 1 jump ahead? Maybe? My gut says no, but there's a chance some decks will probably use this. In draft, I would probably take this just to really help get early ink advantage over my opponent, especially if I was the one who went second. This might help you sort of catch up. But yeah, you can get ink ahead of your opponent and you get a character on the board. So I think it's pretty decent. Next, Basil's Magnifying Glass. This is an inkable 2-cost Sapphire item. With 1 ability, Find What's Hidden. Exert this card, pay 2 ink, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is a pretty decent card that also might see some play in item-heavy decks, but we also have some characters that do this exact same thing. So I guess it depends on whether you want an item or a character to do this action in a specific list. I'm a big fan of filtering cards from the top of your deck, so overall I would say I like this card a lot, and it might see some play in constructed decks. In draft, I probably wouldn't play it since you don't have that many items anyway, so filtering is not really going to do much for you. Next up, we have maybe one of my most anticipated cards from the entire set, which is really funny to say about an uncommon, but it's true. This is Alan Adale, Rockin' Rooster. He is an inkable 4-cost Amber card. He's a character with 2 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 1 ability, Fan Favorite. Whenever you play a song, gain 1 lore. I really love this card. Yes, his stats are okay, but he quests for 2. He gets you extra lore. He goes really, really well in a Steel Song deck with flutes to just really capitalize on singing songs. I'm a big fan of this. I think this will 100% see play. In draft, I might take it just because it has 2 lore, but honestly, there are probably better cards you could be putting in your deck in a draft sense, but this will definitely see some constructed play. All right, this is Who's With Me. It is an inkable 3-cost Ruby action. It says your characters get +2 strength this turn, and whenever one of your characters with Reckless challenges another character this turn, gain 2 lore. For an action, I think this is a pretty decent card. It goes fairly well with things like Maui and Hercules since they both have Reckless. And you're just giving them 2 extra strength to take something critical out next turn, and you get some lore at the same time. I think this is pretty cool. Might see a little play in constructed. It is a super rare, which is kind of nuts. I would have, if you'd have had me guess, I would have said, oh, this is an uncommon or something for sure. So I'm a little surprised this is a super rare. In draft, I might run it just to help deal with threats that get 2 strength and possibly get an extra 2 lore. But it is board wide, so that is nice. I think this might see some play somewhere. All right, we've got another fairy from Sleeping Beauty. This is Flora, Good Fairy. She's an inkable 3-cost Emerald character with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 1. Her ability is Fiddle Faddle. While being challenged, this character gets +2 strength. Not a big fan of this card. Doesn't really do much. Next. Okay, now for a pretty cool card. This is Pete, Game Referee. He's an inkable 3-cost steel card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, which reads, when you play this character, opponents cannot play actions until the start of your next turn. This is super powerful and can really interrupt some of your opponent's game plans, especially if they're planning on playing something like Steel Song. You can play this on turn 3, and then your opponent, you know, if they have an Ariel that's ready to sing next turn, she just can't sing A Whole New World or Grab Your Sword. That's already really, really strong. There's just so many use cases for this card that I think this will for sure see constructed play in a fair amount of Steel decks, especially if Steel Song comes back in a big way. This is a great piece to just shut that down. In draft, you can also use this as just like a 3/3 for 3 that has the added benefit of locking your opponent out of actions for a turn. So yeah, this is an amazing card. Really great card. Next is a really cool song that I think a lot of people are undervaluing. This is We Know the Way. It is an inkable 3-cost song in... It is an inkable 3-cost amethyst song. It reads, shuffle chosen card from your discard into your deck. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it has the same name as the chosen card, you may play the revealed card for free. Otherwise, put it into your hand. I actually really love this card. I know that the play for free trigger sounds hard to pull off, and it sort of is, although it gets a little stronger with every time they just print another, you know, another Maleficent or another Beast or another Belle, because it's just more of the same character. But if you literally just ignore that and think about the fact that you could use this to shuffle like a Merlin Goat back into your deck from your discard, and then you get to draw a card also, so you get to replace this. And in most cases, if you're playing Amethyst, you might actually just hit another Merlin to play, which is nice. I'm just using that as an example. But yeah, this is a really, really cool card with a lot of potential. Might play it in draft since it could help you really get some key cards back, but you could also just use it as ink. I think this is a really cool card that people are sleeping on, to be honest. All right, next we've got Maleficent, Fearful Queen, or Evil Queen. Sorry, I'm looking at a translation, so it might look a little different. This is an uninkable 8-cost amethyst card with 7 strength, 7 willpower. She quests for 2. She has Shift 2 and 1 ability. When you play this character, for each of your characters in play named Maleficent, you may return an opposing character, item, or location with cost 3 or less to their player's hand. These stats are okay, but the ability is so highly conditional and is really hard to pull off. I don't think this card's all that great and probably won't see a lot of play in any format. I could be really wrong about this, but this just does not seem that good. All right, next up is a Lorcana lore item. This is Queen's Sensor Core. It is an inkable 2-cost amber item with 2 abilities. First is Symbol of Nobility. At the start of your turn, if you have a princess or queen character in play, gain 1 lore. And the second ability, Royal Search. You can exert this card and pay 2 ink. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a princess or a queen character, you may put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it on the top of your deck. Obviously, this goes in a queen or princess heavy deck, but it doesn't really go anywhere else unless you just happen to be running lots of queens or princesses. I wouldn't play this in draft at all unless you somehow drafted a lot of princesses or queens. And I can't really see it going in any constructed decks for now, but it could go in some fun decks. And honestly, the more princesses and queens they release in the future, just the better this card gets. So I see potential for it in the future, just not at the current moment. Next up, Rapunzel's Tower, Secluded Prison. This is an inkable 2-cost location with a move cost of 1, 8 willpower, and no lore. It has 1 ability, Safe and Sound. Characters get +3 willpower while here. I think this is actually a pretty good location despite the lack of lore. It has a lot of health and gives the characters here a pretty significant boost in health. So I think this is pretty good and will actually do really well in aggro decks. In draft, I honestly might take this because it's just so annoying and it might really annoy your opponents, but you're gonna really have to tempo well, and that's maybe its one downside, but I see potential in this card. Next up, Healing Decanter. This is an inkable 2-cost amber item with 1 ability, Renewing Essence. Exert this card, remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. This is okay, might be fairly good in draft to just keep your bomb characters alive, but other than that, I don't think this will see a ton of play in constructed. There's other items that sort of do this, so yeah, probably not. Next up is a card I'm both excited about and very disappointed in. This is Merlin, back from the Bermudas. It is an inkable 4-cost sapphire character card with 1 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 2. And he has 1 ability, which basically reads that your Arthur characters get resist +1. I love the art and the reference, but I just don't think this card's all that great. The fact his ability only benefits a specific card is very unfortunate, so yeah, I don't think this is really going to see play in constructed. In draft, I might take it just because he quests for 2 and he's inkable, but that's about it. There's probably better 4-drops to be playing in draft anyway. Next is Bonsai. Is an inkable 2-cost emerald character with 3 strength, 2 willpower, and quest for 2. He's a vanilla. This is a pretty decent card for a vanilla. Good stats. He quests for 2. Yeah, I don't hate this. For sure a playable card in draft, constructed, quite possibly if the Hyena's ping deck becomes a thing. Yeah, this will definitely probably see play. Next is another Bonsai. This is Bonsai Taunting Hyena. It's an inkable 2-cost emerald character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and a quest for 1. He has 1 ability here, kitty, kitty, kitty. When you play this character, you may exert chosen damaged character. It's okay. I mean, if the ping deck becomes a thing, I think this could be a good card, but overall it's just okay. It's an okay common in draft, honestly. Next, we have Cusco's Selfish Emperor. This is an inkable 6-cost sapphire character card with 3 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 2 lore, and he has 2 abilities. Outplacement. When you play this character, you may put chosen item or location into its player's inkwell, face down and exerted. Second ability is by invite only. Pay 4 ink. Your other characters gain resist 1 until the start of your next turn. This is a great card. It's location and item removal with a body attached. And it has decent stats. Its other ability is okay, but could be very useful in just some random situations. But I think the main reason to play this is the first ability. This is a great card that I think we'll see play. For sure, play this in draft and get rid of any annoying locations or items your opponent might be playing, and you get a pretty good character in the process. So yeah, really cool card. Next is Hey Hey Protective Rooster. This is an inkable 5-cost steel character card with 4 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2, and he has bodyguard, so French vanilla. I actually think this is a good card. It's a really great draft card, but in a steel deck that cares about bodyguards, this is a pretty good bodyguard. I like it. I do wish he was a knight. I know that sounds silly, but look at him. He's got armor. This could do well on a knight deck. You know I'm right. So a little disappointed in that, but yeah, I actually really like this card. Next, we've got White Rabbit, Royal Herald. It's an inkable 3-cost amethyst character with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1, and he's a vanilla. It's okay. It's a basic vanilla with decent stats. It's good in draft. Won't be played and constructed at all. Moving on. Next, we have the Obscurasphere. It is an inkable 1-cost emerald item with 1 ability that reads Extract of Emerald. Pay 2 ink. Banish this item. Your characters gain ward until the start of your next turn. Meh. Moving on. This is Shenzi Head Hyena. This is something... actually... Okay, now we're getting something kind of interesting here. This is Shenzi Head Hyena. It is an inkable 5-cost emerald character with 3 strength and 6 willpower. She quests for 1 lore and has 2 abilities. Stick around for dinner. This character gets +1 strength for each other hyena character you have in play. And what have we got here? Whenever one of your hyena characters challenges a damaged character, gain 2 lore. I think this card is basically the cornerstone of a hyena ping deck. I would possibly play it in draft if I managed to get a lot of hyena cards, just because there's just nice synergy there. I actually think this is pretty good in its archetype. I would play it if I was playing a hyena deck. This might be all right. Will hyenas be meta? I mean, who knows? We'll see, but this is a pretty interesting and cool card. Next up is possibly one of my favorite legendary cards in the entire set. This is Prince Naveen, Ukulele Player. He is an uninkable 4-cost amber character with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 2 lore. He has Singer 6 and 1 ability. It's beautiful, no? When you play this character, you may play a song with cost 6 or less for free. I think this card is bonkers good. The 2 songs that immediately come to mind, and I'm sure they're coming to your mind too, is Grab Your Sword and Whole New World. The stats are okay. He quests for 2, but on top of that, getting to play that 1 song for free a turn early, and he has Singer 6, which means he can sing a bigger song the turn after he comes down as well. Love it. Big fan. This card's nuts. Next up is Pridelands Jungle Oasis, another Pridelands location. This is an inkable 3-cost location with a move cost of 2. It has 8 willpower and 1 ability, Our Humble Home. While you have 3 or more characters here, you may banish this location to play a character from your discard for free. And I forgot to mention it also has 1 passive lore. Somebody is going to find a really cool combo with this card. The move cost is 2, which seems like a lot, but it does have 8 health, which isn't easily removed, and it does get 1 passive lore. So yeah, overall, this is a pretty cool location, even if you just play it to coax your opponent into banishing it by having their characters challenge it. That in itself is pretty good. It leaves them open and vulnerable. You could play this in a draft just for the lore, and I'm going to bet somebody finds a really interesting way to get 3 characters here fast at some point. This is a very interesting location to keep your eye on. Okay, interesting beefy card next. This is Sheriff of Nottingham. It is an uninkable 9-cost Sapphire character with 5 strength, 9 willpower, and quests for 4 lore. Woo-wee! He has support and 1 ability, which says it costs 1 ink less for every item you have in play. He has 1 ability, which says it costs 1 ink less for every item that you have in play. I think this could see some play in an item deck if for some reason you didn't want to play Tamatoa. But the nice thing about this is that if you do it right, you could ramp to this faster than Tamatoa and play him earlier if you manage to get multiple popsicles and forest spheres out. All in all, I think this is a pretty cool card. If it sees constructed play, I sort of have my doubts just because Tamatoa is just so ingrained in the format and in the archetypes. In draft, it might be very difficult to play, but if you manage to do it, it would be really hard for your opponent to deal with, and that extra support makes it really, really scary. But being able to run a lot of items and get that high in ink is going to be really, really difficult. So I don't think you ever really play this in a draft deck at all. And whether it sees constructed play remains to be seen. My gut honestly says no. It's like almost on the cusp of being really, really strong, but my gut says no. Okay, next up is Little John. He is an inkable 1-cost emerald character with 0 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1, and he's a vanilla. That's okay, that guess. It's nothing special. It's not that exciting. Let's just move on. Next, Archimedes is back, and he's better than ever. This is Archimedes Electrified Owl. He's an inkable 5-cost amethyst character with 1 strength, 4 willpower. He quests for 2 lore. He is Shift 3, Evasive, and Challenger 3. I love this card. It's so good. It has a lot going for it. Being able to challenge other evasive characters if it needs to is really nice. He quests for 2 lore. It's got Challenger. Just really good card all around in both formats. Big fan. Next, we have the Queen. She is an inkable 5-cost Sapphire character card with 2 strength, 6 willpower. She quests for 1 lore. She can shift for 3. She has ward and 1 ability. This character gets +1 lore for each character named the Queen you have in play. I'm not convinced that the Queen only deck is going to be a thing next set. It might be funny. It might work at some point in the future, but not at this moment for sure. But you know, the more queens they release, you know, the better this gets. I really do see a world in maybe a year or 2 when we start having decks that are basically just filled with the same character. So yeah, this could be good way in the future, but for now, not really. This is Shenzi with another subtitle that I cannot translate. It is an inkable 3-cost emerald card with 2 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1. She has evasive and 1 ability, easy pickings. While challenging a damaged character, this character gets +2 strength. It's got evasive, so that's cool. I guess this goes well in the ping deck, especially the hyena one. So overall, I would say I like it, but I feel like I only like it in that deck. So in draft, it's really gonna depend on if you get more hyenas, but even then it has evasive, so it could be pretty good in draft. But yeah, in constructed, probably only gonna ever see play in a hyena deck. Okay, next up is a pretty cool card. So I have 2 showing here. The one you're seeing on the left is the version of the card available in the set booster packs. And the one on the right is the set championship card that you'll be able to earn next set champs, which should be running sometime in October or November, based on my math. I'm gonna say October-ish, I believe. And you only have to place in the top 8 to receive it this time. So that is a cool change that will bring down the value of the card, but it means that more people will be able to get their hands on it. So either way, this card is Mirabelle Madrigal, Family Gatherer. She's a inkable 5-cost amber character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and she quests for 5 lore. She has 1 ability, Not Without My Family. You can't play this character unless you have 5 or more characters in play. I struggle to figure out how to reliably play this card and get the 5 lore. Needing 5 or more characters in the first place on the field is really, really tough. I don't know about this card. I love the art. I'm not a believer that it'll be good, at least in the upcoming meta. In draft, I would stay away from this unless you just plan to go all in on this with your game plan and just play like 1-drops and stuff. But even then, I doubt that would work very well. So I guess take it from your draft pack because it's a legendary, right? Just rare draft. But yeah, this is a tough one. I think maybe if you I think maybe down the road, there is a possibility that someone finds a way to cheat this out and make it good, or just getting 5 characters on the board is easier, but right now, yeah, not so great. Next is Arthur, Novice Sparrow. Is an uninkable 1-cost ruby character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower, no lore, and he has Reckless. It's a pretty good card with some decent stats, and it's another shift target for the bigger Arthur card, so yeah, overall I like it, but there's not much to say about it. Another great Archimedes card. This is Archimedes Exasperated Owl. Is an inkable 3-cost amethyst card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, he quests for 2, and he has evasive. Great stats, quests for 2, and it's evasive. What is not to love? It's awesome. Play this card in draft and constructed, seriously. Especially in draft, this card is just awesome. Once again, Maid Marian is done dirty. This is Maid Marian. Once again, a subtitle I cannot translate. It is an inkable 6-cost amber character card with 4 strength, 5 willpower. She quests for 2 lore, and she has 1 ability, which basically reads, when you play this character, your chosen character gets -5 strength this turn. Not a fan. Don't expect to see this played and constructed really at all. Maybe in draft, it could be okay to catch your opponent off guard, but I doubt it. Overall, it's kind of meh. I'm sure someone was going to prove me wrong with this and find some way to manipulate things with this, but right now, I'm not feeling it. Okay, next is another shift target for Arthur. This is Arthur Wart. It is an inkable 2-cost steel character with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 2 lore, and he's a vanilla. I like it. There's not much more to say about it. It's really basic. Next is Healing Touch. This is an inkable 3-cost amber action card, which reads, remove up to 4 damage from chosen character, draw a card. It's all right. At least it replaces itself, so it could be useful in draft just to get that extra card draw and to maybe heal one of your bombs. In Constructed, I doubt this sees any play unless the Grand Hobby deck ever becomes a thing. All right, I've got a fair amount to say about this next card, but it might not be what you think. So this is Prince John's Mirror. It is an inkable 3-cost emerald item with 2 abilities. The first one, you look regal. If you have a character named Prince John in play, you pay 1 ink less to play this item, and a feeling of power. At the end of each opponent's turn, if they have more than 3 cards in their hand, they discard until they have 3 cards in their hand. I think this card is wildly overrated and potentially not actually all that great. And I'll tell you why. It's an item. We already have a lot of item removal in the game that can take care of this. It's 1 Benja away from not being a problem. The card doesn't make you discard unless your hand is over 3 cards. So you know what the easiest way to deal with this is before you blow it up is to just never let your hand go above 3 cards, which in the middle of the game, unless you're running a ton of card draws, it's actually not that hard to do. It also potentially means that if you're playing a deck where you want to bring stuff back from your discard pile, you just kind of discard the stuff you want to bring back later. So it actually helps you in that sense if your opponent's playing this. I'm not convinced that this is a great card. I've talked to so many people that are like actually angry that this card exists. I think they're just really tired of discard decks in general, and I get it. I dislike them as well. They're not fun to play against. However, I don't actually think this is that great. And the people who think it's going to be the next big powerful thing are probably going to be mistaken. but we'll see. Only time will tell. Also, this card is borderline unplayable in draft since nobody ever has cards to play anyway, so I would avoid it there. Next is another legendary card. This is Camillo Madrigal, Family Copycat. It is an inkable 6-cost amethyst character with 3 strength, 7 willpower. He quests for 1 lore and he has 1 ability, Imitate. Whenever this character quests, you may gain lore equal to the lore of chosen other character of yours. Return that character to your hand. Really interesting bounce card that's kind of similar to the Arthur from set 2. It has some decent stats. This would work really well with something like Merlin Goat because you quest with this for 1 lore, you bounce the goat, gain its lore value, which is 1, and then you get another lore for it going back to your hand. So that's 3 in all, which isn't bad. And you get to play the goat next turn. So, and then do it again. So you get 4 next turn. I think this warrants some testing beforehand, but I do think this could see some play somewhere. In draft, I would probably play this, to be honest. Okay, we've got a weird one. This is Blast from Your Past. It is an uninkable 6-cost amber action song. And it reads, name a card. Return all character cards with that name from your discard to your hand. This will be good in a deck where all of your characters are named the same thing. I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of overall card count, but a few years from now, this could sneak into a weird tribal deck for sure. In draft though, I think you should avoid this card altogether. All right, next is a really interesting Ana card with some really cool art. This is Ana, and I cut that part before. She's an uninkable 7-cost amethyst character with 4 strength, 5 willpower. She quests for 2, and she can shift for 4, and she has 1 ability, which reads, when you play this character, exert all of your opponent's characters. This reminds me a lot of Elsa Spirit of Winter from set 1, except it doesn't lock your opponent's targets out during their turn, but it does hit their entire board, which can be really good if you already have some characters ready to capitalize on your opponent's cards being vulnerable. It can also be shifted onto the smaller Ana from this set. So overall, I think this is pretty cool and powerful card. This could be really good in draft, but it's going to be difficult to get to the 7 ink. But if you can get the shift target for this, I think this could win you some draft games. Okay, next is another Treasure Planet card, and unfortunately the only Treasure Planet card in the entire set. This is Scroop. He's an uninkable 3-cost emerald character with 2 strength, 1 willpower. He quests for 2. He has evasive and 1 ability. Do say hello to Mr. Arrow. When you play this character, you may pay 3 ink to banish chosen damaged character. I'm of 2 minds of this card. I do like that he's evasive and could quest for 2, but that's about where my likes of it actually end. These stats are not great, and to top it off, the ability is highly conditional. And if you manage to pull it off, you're spending 6 ink for a conditional Dragonfire. No thanks. I take it in draft just because it's evasive and can quest for 2, but that's honestly about it. Next is a really good steel card. This is Simba, Son of Mufasa. It is an inkable 6-cost steel character card with 3 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 1. He has Shift 4 and 1 ability, Fearsome Roar. When you play this character, you may banish chosen item or location. I really like this. It's good location removal on a character with okay stats. I think this will see play, especially in a lot of the... I think this will see some play, especially if a lot of the locations from this set start seeing play. But even then, it's a great counter to Queen's Castle. I like this card a lot. This is a great card. Next is another great location for Amethyst. It's the Library, a gift for Belle. It is an inkable 3-cost location with a move cost of 1, 8 willpower, 1 passive lore, and 1 ability, Lost in a Book. Whenever a character is banished while here, you may draw a card. I think I still prefer Queen's Castle, but this is still really good and does have 1 more health than Castle, so it's a little more sturdy. This could very well see some play, and yeah, I would totally 100% play this in draft. Next is another Clarabelle card. This is Clarabelle with a light hoof. She is an inkable 7-cost emerald character card with 5 strength, 6 willpower. She quests for 2 lore. She has Shift 5 and 1 ability. If an opponent has more cards in hand, then you may draw until you have the same amount. This is a really cool card in draft if you manage to get the smaller Clarabelle card to shift this onto. I don't think this goes well in a discard deck since you want your opponent to have more cards than you at any given time just to make this work. So possibly this can go in a ping deck. As some extra card draw, but very unclean. But overall, I think in a vacuum, this is a pretty good card. Time will tell though. Next is Hypnotic Strength. This is an inkable 2-cost amethyst action card that reads, draw a card. Chosen character gets Challenger 2 this turn. This is an amazing card in draft that I would take a lot. You get to give a character +2 strength and it replaces itself. Very, very nice. In Constructed, it probably won't see a lot of play, unfortunately, but yeah, really good support card for draft. And to pair with that, at least art-wise, this is Hypnotic Deduction. It is an inkable 2-cost emerald action card that reads, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your deck in any order. I actually kind of like this card. I would play this in draft for sure, since it lets you get to the stuff you need faster. In Constructed, I could see a world where this sees play. It isn't a song, so that does make it a little harder, but never underestimate card filtering. It is an incredibly powerful ability in card games, because at the end of the day, you know what's better than drawing cards? Drawing the exact card you need right then and there. And if the thing that you need is 3 cards down, this will help you get it. So yeah, it's a cool card. Next is a French vanilla. This is Gazelle Popstar. She's an inkable 3-cost amber character with 2 strength, 3 willpower. She has Singer 5 and can quest for 2 lore. This is decent. There are some other 3-cost cards you might want to play instead, but overall it's not bad. And it quests for 2, so that automatically just makes it better. I would use this in draft if I just needed some more random 3-drop characters for sure, but that might be where that ends. Definitely would not play this over Ariel. Next is a very interesting card. So this is Jafar, Tyrannical Hypnotist. It is an inkable 6-cost steel character with 0 strength, 7 willpower, quests for 2 lore. He has Challenger 7. He also has 1 ability, Intimidating Gaze. Opposing characters with cost 4 or less can't challenge. I've seen a lot of people say this is a bad card, and while I sort of agree with them, I think this also has some potential. For one, it has strange stats, but in the right circumstances, it can take out larger characters and locations, and also keep certain characters from challenging at all. So I could see this going into a Jafar wheel deck, maybe. I'm not totally sure about that. But I think time will tell whether this is good or not. I don't want to just outright say this is a bad card because my gut tells me there could be something here someday. Maybe just not right now. Next is another weird queen card. It is an uninkable 4-cost sapphire character with 3 strength, 2 willpower. She has quests for 2 lore. She has Ward and 1 ability, Reunite the Villains. When you play this character, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal each character named the Queen and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. I think you play this in a deck with a lot of Queen characters, so maybe Blurple Queen Tribal, I don't really know. However, we might be getting more Queen cards in set 6. However, we might be getting more Queen cards in set 6 if some of the other cards with teaser text are to be believed. So there's a chance this card isn't good this meta, but maybe in a future one. But for now, I'm not really convinced. Next is Revive. It is an uninkable 5-cost amber action card that reads, play a character card with cost 5 or less from your discard for free. This could be cool to cheat some cards into play by first discarding them and then just reviving them. I've seen a lot of people bringing up Mufasa as a good target for this, but the problem with that is that if you put this in a Mufasa deck, you right off the bat make Mufasa worse, since the percentage chance of you drawing a character when he is banished goes down. So yeah, it could be cool, but at the moment, I think this is a bit niche. Next up is a pretty cool card. This is Maximus, Champion of the Team. It is an inkable 6-cost ruby character card with 3 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2 lore. He has 1 ability, a reward worthy of a king. At the end of your turn, if you have a character in play with 5 strength or more, gain 2 lore. If that character has 10 strength or more, gain 5 lore instead. This is basically a bigger Flynn frenemy, and I really like this card. With all of the really strong characters coming out next set, I think this could potentially see some play in something like Ruby Steel. It remains to be seen, but yeah, really cool card, and one that I would probably take in draft alongside my bomb just for that extra profit. Next is Radigan's Party Seedy Backroom. This is an inkable 2-cost ruby location with a move cost of 1 and 7 willpower. It has no passive lore and 1 ability, Misfits Revelry. While you have a damaged character here, this location gets +2 lore. This obviously goes in a ruby damage character deck, which currently isn't a thing, but is getting more support next set, so this is just another card for its toolbox. Could be cool, might be okay in draft if you play it around correctly, but overall I'm not really convinced by it. Doesn't excite me. I don't think it's really all that great. Okay, this is Pacha, Emperor's Guide. It is an inkable 3-cost sapphire character with 0 strength, 4 willpower. He quests for 2, and he has 2 abilities. Helpful Supplies. At the start of your turn, if you have an item in play, gain 1 lore. Perfect Directions. At the start of your turn, if you have a location in play, gain 1 lore. This is a pretty cool card for Sapphire Steel, since you're playing a lot of items. You might be playing a location or 2, and he quests for 2 if you really need it. So this is a decent support card that I believe is worthy of play in some Sapphire Steel decks. In draft, it could be okay if you get a few items or locations, but it's not really going to do anything except maybe get you 2 lore. But it could be cool in draft. Okay, next is a really cool card. This is Anna, Diplomatic Queen. She is an uninkable 3-cost emerald character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 2. She has 1 ability, Royal Resolution. When you play this character, you may pay 2 to choose 1. First choice, each opponent chooses and discards a card. Second choice, chosen character gets +2 strength this turn. Third choice, banish chosen damaged character. I really love this card. I love cards that give you choices and act sort of like Swiss Army knives. This has so much utility for a variety of decks. This is maybe one of the cooler legendaries from the set, and I think it might actually see some play in Constructed, and I honestly for sure would play this in draft. I love it. Okay, so this is a card that we actually saw in the Illumineer's Quest, or Illumineer, I think it's Illumineer's Quest. But now it's finally coming out with different artwork. So this is half Hexwell Crown. It is an uninkable 6-cost amethyst item with 2 abilities. First one is an unexpected find. Exert this card, pay 2 ink, draw a card. The second one is a Perilous Power. Exert this card, pay 2 ink, discard a card, exert chosen character. I don't like this card that much. It's expensive. The abilities are expensive. I'm not a believer. It has significance in the lore, but I don't think this card's that good. Sorry. Next is another amethyst item. It's Retrosphere. It is an inkable 1-cost amethyst item with 1 ability, Extract of Amethyst. Pay 2 ink, banish this item, return chosen character, item, or location with cost 3 or less to their player's hand. This is expensive and limiting. I don't know about it. It might be okay in the right circumstances, but I think it just costs too much. So I don't really like it that much. Next is another vanilla card. This is Royal Guard Bovine Protector. It's an inkable 4-cost steel character card with 1 strength, 7 willpower. He quests for 1. He's a vanilla. Might be okay in draft just because it's really awkward to deal with, but other than that, no thanks. Next, a very interesting card that could see some play in some Amethyst decks. This is Olaf, Happy Passenger. It is an uninkable 9-cost Amethyst character card with 6 strength, 6 willpower. He quests for 3 lore. He has evasive and 1 ability, Clear the Path. For each exerted character opponents have in play, you pay 1 less ink to play this character. This card has a lot of potential. The fact that it's evasive and quests for 3 is just bonkers. And if your opponent has 3 exerted characters, this just becomes a 6-drop. In draft, this could basically win you the game if they don't have a way to deal with it, and honestly, it's going to be really difficult to deal with. And in Constructed, it could be a really solid quester. I actually like this card a lot. Next is another really good quester. This is Daisy Duck, Spotless Food Fighter. She is an inkable 2-cost ruby character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower. She quests for 1 and has evasive. I like it. It's solid. Great draft card. Probably really good in a myriad of Constructed decks. Yeah, big fan. All right, I'm seeing a lot of hype around this next card. This is Earth Giant, Living Mountain. It's an inkable 4-cost Amethyst character card with 4 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 2. He has 1 ability, Unearthed. When you play this character, each opponent draws a card. Yes, letting your opponent draw a card can be really bad, but if you pair this with something like Diablo, then you get to draw a card as well, so that at least lowers the sting a little bit. That small downside, though, really does give you a beefy character for the cost with good stats, so I think this card really could see some play in a few decks, and in draft, I think it has potential. There's something here, I think. Next up, King of Hearts, Monarch of Wonderland. He's an inkable 4-cost amethyst character with 1 strength, 4 willpower. He quests for 2. He has 1 ability, Pleasing the Queen. Exert this card. Chosen exerted character can't ready at the start of their next turn. I'm not sure about this card. It could be really good in a deck that tries to lock your opponent out by just keeping their characters exerted. But you also need a way to exert them, because the minute you do, this is going to lock them out of readying. Actually, the more I talk about it, the more I see its use. This card actually de-incentivizes your opponent from questing or challenging, since this will lock that character in place unless they can get rid of it. So yeah, I actually think this is a great card. Never mind, this is a good card. This will probably see some play somewhere. Next is the Knock, Mythical Spirit. It is an inkable 6-cost amethyst character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower. It quests for 1. It has 1 ability, Turning Tides. When you play this character, you may move up to 2 damage counters from chosen character to chosen opposing character. This could be cool in a moving damage deck, but I feel like even in that archetype, there are better cards like the Bell Sorcerer. This is a pretty decent common in draft, but I don't think this really sees play in constructed at all. Next is Donald Duck, Daisy's Date. It's a lot of D's. Is an inkable 3-cost ruby character with 2 strength, 4 willpower, quests for 1, and has 1 ability, Plucky Play. Whenever this character challenges another character, each opponent loses 1 lore. I still don't think there's enough payoff for making your opponent lose lore right now, so I don't think this is all that great, but we'll see. Next is an interesting card, but I think ultimately is kind of a bad card. This is Food Fight, an uninkable 1-cost steal action that reads, your character's gain, exert this character, and pay 1 ink, deal 1 damage to chosen character this turn. This sounds fairly good in a ping deck, but a lot of people have pointed out that if you use this, you aren't questing with any of those characters. You're actually using quite a bit of ink to pull this off, depending on how many characters you have. I don't know, this could be okay. I'm not super convinced at the moment that this is good though, unfortunately. All right, next up, Yzma. Unjustly Treated. She's an uninkable 4-cost steel character card with 1 strength, 4 willpower. She quests for 2 and 1 ability. I am warning you. During your turn, whenever one of your characters banishes a character in a challenge, you may deal 1 damage to your chosen character. The stats are a little wonky. I think this primarily goes in a ping deck, just as a way to ping characters, but I don't really know if this sees play. It's a little too weak and a little awkward. Not sure about it yet. All right, this is Kronk, Unlicensed Investigator. He's an inkable 2-cost steel character with 1 strength, 4 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has Challenger 1. I think this card's okay. Its main purpose, though, is to act as the primary shift target for Kronk, Head of Security. A card which I was not a fan of the first time I saw it, but with the addition of this card, I'd say my stance on it has softened a bit, so yeah, as a shift target, this is good, but just as a card, I don't think this sees a ton of play on its own merit. Next is a card that will see play just because of its merit. This is Zazu, Advisor to Mufasa. It is an inkable 5-cost emerald character card with 3 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 2, and he has evasive. This is a really solid card. It has really good stats. It's evasive, it quests for 2 lore, so it can reliably get you a good amount of lore, and it can take out some other evasive characters if it needs to. So yeah, I like this card. It's a good card in all formats, and it's a common, so play it for sure. Next is another good draft card. Maybe not so good in constructed, we'll see, but probably really annoying in draft. This is Gale, Wind Spirit. It is an inkable 3-cost amethyst character card. It has 1 strength, 2 willpower, and quests for 2. It has 1 ability, Recurring Gust. When this character is banished in a challenge, return this card to your hand. We've had a lot of characters that return to the hand after being banished, but this having 2 lore makes it a threat and really forces your opponent to use removal cards like Baboom to get rid of it effectively. I think this is a really good card in draft since it will be really annoying to get rid of. You're gonna have to ping it basically to get rid of it. In Constructed, it might not see as much play just since Steel will continue to be very prevalent in the meta, and this will probably just get blasted the moment it comes out on the field. Next is Robin Hood, Archery Contestant. This is an inkable 2-cost Emerald character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower. He quests for 1 lore, and he has 1 ability, Trick Shot. When you play this character, if an opponent has a damaged character in play, gain 1 lore. This is a way worse Merlin Goat. No thanks. All right, next is Minnie Mouse Drum Major. This is an inkable 5-cost Amber character card with 4 strength, 4 willpower. She quests for 2. She has Shift 4 and 1 ability, Parade Order. When you play this character, if you used Shift to play her, you may search your deck for a character card and reveal that card to all players. Shuffle your deck and put that card on top of it. I think this could go well in a Mufasa deck if you time it just right, but setting up that combo is going to be a little wonky and unreliable. In draft, you might take this, you know, but I think this is a way better card in Constructed. But I also think it really only goes in that one deck. I could be proven wrong. I want to be wrong because I think this card's kind of cool, but we'll see. Next is Lilo Jr. Cake Decorator. She is an inkable 2-cost Amber character card with 1 strength and 3 willpower. She quests for 1. She has support. This card's really cute, but it's not that great. Probably won't see play. I do love the cake though. Next is Nala, Mischievous Cub. It is an inkable 1-cost Amber character card with 0 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 1. She's a vanilla. Nothing special here. This might go in some like budget aggro list or something, but I think there's way better options. I'm not that excited about it. Okay, next is pretty good for a vanilla. This is Moana, Determined Explorer. She is an uninkable 3-cost Amber character card with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 2, and she's a vanilla. It's nothing crazy, but it has really good stats for the cost, so this is a great draft card and probably pretty good in some princess heavy decks just as a 3-drop. So I would say overall I actually kind of like it. All right, this is Cogsworth Illuminary Watchman. He is an inkable 1-cost Amethyst character card with 1 strength and a 1 willpower. He quests for 1 and he has 1 ability, Time to Move It. When you play this character, chosen character gains Rush this turn. I think this is okay, but it isn't a card you want to be playing on turn 1 at all, and there are probably better uses of your time and card slots. However, if you're playing Blurple, this is an excellent shift target and just tech piece for Blurple to shift out Cogsworth onto, so that could be cool, and I do love Blurple, so in that sense, I do like it, but in every other sense, not a huge fan. All right, this next card confuses me a little bit, and I don't think it's all that great, but we'll see. This is Maleficent Vexed Partygoer. She is an inkable 3-cost Amethyst character card with 0 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 4. She has 1 ability. What an awkward situation. Whenever this character quests, you may choose and discard a card to return chosen character, item, or location with cost 3 or less to their player's hand. Spending an entire card to bounce something could be rough, but there is a chance somewhere down the road this is used for some strange bounce deck. I'm not convinced this is good yet, but I'm open to having my mind changed. Next is a card that's both really good and really bad at the same time. It's Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. It is an uninkable 2-cost Amethyst action that reads Gain 2 lore. This is like the fast food of Lorcana cards. All the satisfaction with none of the work and all the regret afterwards. Yes, paying 2 ink to get 2 lore is really nice, and if you have a playset of these and you manage to get them all in a game, that's 8 lore for basically no work, and that sounds great. The problem is that you're going to have this and probably not need it more often than you want to see it. When you're way behind and you need to top deck something to save you, this is the last thing you want to see. You know, if you're at like 5 lore and your opponent's at 18, you're like, okay, I need that thing that's going to help me like stay in the game, and you pull this, you're going to be very angry. However, I do like it overall, and in draft, I would probably play it just because it's efficient, and who knows, a burn style deck could become a thing later down the line with this. Next is Magical Aid. It is an inkable 3-cost Amethyst action card that reads, chosen character gains Challenger 3, and quote, when this character is banished in a challenge, return this card to your hand, unquote, this turn. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I don't think this is a terrible card for something like draft. If you pair it with something that has rush, However, I don't think you'll ever see this in constructed play. Okay, the next two are pretty interesting. This is Mother Gothel, Conceited Manipulator. She's an inkable 2-cost emerald character card with 1 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1, and she has 1 ability. Mother knows best. When you play this character, you may pay 3 ink to return chosen character to their player's hand. This is basically like having another copy of Mother Knows Best attached to a body, which is nice. But it can be kind of expensive, whereas the song can be sung for free. But if you pair this with Mother Knows Best, then it's kind of like having extra copies of it with a character attached, so that's kind of nice. This card is pretty good. I think it might see some play in some specific bounce deck lists, maybe, but I think there's probably better options. And in draft, this could be really good if you take advantage of the ability and try and stall out one of your opponent's like bomb cards. That could be really great. But we'll see. Next is another Mother Gothel with some very pronounced drag race energy. This is Mother Gothel, Unwavering Schemer. She's an inkable 6-cost emerald character card with 4 strength, 6 willpower. She quests for 2. She has shift 4 and 1 ability. The world is dark. When you play this character, each opponent chooses one of their characters and returns that card to their hand. So this is like a Lady Tremaine and Emerald, except for bounce. I think there's a chance that this could see some play in Emerald control-y type decks. The stats aren't bad, and you can shift her on turn 4. So I think I like this card, but part of me also feels like I'd rather play Genie on the job instead, since I can pick the target and he's evasive. This card, however, has better stats and is inkable, so it's probably going to heavily depend on the list, but overall, cool card. Next is Ratigan, Raging Rat. This is an inkable 3-cost ruby character card with 1 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 1. He has 1 ability. Nothing can stand in my way. While this character has damage, he gets +2 strength. I'm not that high on this card. Once he has damage on him, yeah, he becomes basically acceptable. But that's the best I can say about it. Not a huge fan. Next is another Pete. This is Pete Pastry Chomper. He's an inkable 3-cost ruby character card with 4 strength, 3 willpower. Quest for 1, and he's vanilla. Stats are pretty good for a random vanilla common. In draft, this might be kind of nice unless you pair this with the other Pete card we talked about earlier in the video, but I don't think this really sees much play, unless you're running like a very heavy Pete deck. Next is another Hag Queen card. This is the Queen, cruelest of all. It is an inkable 2-cost sapphire character card with 0 strength, 4 willpower. She quests for 1, and she has Ward. This card is kind of meh, but I think it hints at there being another Queen Floodborn card in set 6. The lore text reads, "She'd seen what the ink could do for other glimmers. What could it do for her?" So I'm calling it here. We're going to get a really cool Sapphire Floodborn Queen card next set. 100%. Next is a very good vanilla card. This is Scrooge McDuck, Aficionado of Antiquities. It is an uninkable 4-cost sapphire character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2. Yes, it's uninkable, but the stats are pretty nuts on this. This is a really good card in draft, and a card that honestly might see some play in some constructed decks just because it has really good stats. It's a good quester. I actually like this card. Okay, we're almost there. This is Prince John, Opportunistic Briber. It's an inkable 3-cost sapphire character card with 1 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 1. He has 1 ability. Whenever you play an item, this character gets +2 strength this turn. I don't like this card. I don't think it's very good, and I don't think it'll see much play. Moving on. Next is Minnie Mouse, Quick Thinking Inventor. It is an uninkable 1-cost sapphire character card with 1 strength, 2 willpower. Quest for 1. It has 1 ability, Cake Catapult. When you play this character, chosen character gets -2 strength this turn. I don't like this card very much. I don't really think it sees any play. Like maybe you could play it in, in a Ruby Sapphire deck, with Brawl or something, but even then, I don't know. Not feeling it. This is Donald Duck, Focused Flatfoot. It is an inkable 5-cost Sapphire character card with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 1 ability, Baffling Mystery. When you play this character, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell, face down and exerted. This is essentially a Mickey Mouse detective with better stats and a higher cost. I actually really like this card, but as always, the ramp is going to depend heavily on what you're trying to ramp to and when. So I do think this card will probably see some constructed play in Sapphire Steel decks. I also think this might even see some play in draft, since it just has good stats and that extra ink might help you get a bomb out a turn earlier than your opponent. So yeah, I'm overall pretty positive on this one. Next is Belle of the Ball. Amazing. It is an uninkable 4-cost Sapphire character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 2. She has Ward and 1 ability, ushered into the party. When you play this character, your other characters gain Ward until the start of your next turn. This is comparable to Aurora Dreaming Guardian from set 1, except that her ability only lasts until your next turn, but she does have Ward on herself, which is really nice. Aurora can also shift, is inkable, and has better stats, so she has that going for her. However, I actually do think this might see some play in some lists if a particular action or character gets out of hand, or if there's a really specific line that you want to prevent your opponent from executing on. This could help protect your board for a turn. It's kind of a we'll see card, but I would say I really do like it overall. All right, now we've got Visions of the Future. This is an inkable 2-cost Sapphire action card that reads, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Put 1 into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This is basically a slightly better Develop Your Brain depending on how you look at it. Develop Your Brain does see play in some lists because it's a very good card. Filtering is a really good ability as well. I think this could see some play in some decks, but for the most part, Sapphire still wants to be ramping with cards like 1 jump ahead on turn 2. So it's hard to say. I really like this card though. It's really good for draft, but constructed is sort of a we'll see. Next is a really good card. This is Hideaway. It is an inkable 2-cost Sapphire action that reads, put chosen item or location into its player's inkwell face down and exerted. This is a great card for Sapphire Steel. It's basically Let It Go for cards like Lucky Dime or any location cards that are a nuisance. Definitely think this will see play in both constructed and draft. It's really good. Next is a very, very good 1-drop. This is Mickey Mouse Food Fight Defender. It is an inkable 1-cost steel character card with 1 strength, 2 willpower. He quests for 1 and he has resist 1. This is a great 1-drop that will be fairly annoying to get rid of early game. It's also an excellent shift target for any Floodborn Mickeys going forward. This is a great linchpin card for certain strategies that might appear in the game in years to come. So yeah, super, super good. Next is Duck for Cover as an inkable 2-cost steel action. It reads, chosen character gains resist 1 and evasive this turn. I'm not convinced that this card is good. It could be useful in some niche instances, and it being inkable really helps, but I just don't see this seeing play at all. Okay, this is Shield of Arendelle. Arendelle? I haven't watched the movie in a long time. This is an inkable 1-cost steel item card with 1 ability, Deflect. Banish this item. Chosen character gains resist 1 until the start of your next turn. Just like the last card, I'm not super convinced that this really sees any play, but it is inkable, so at least it has that going for it. But yeah, not a huge fan. Next is a really interesting card that I don't really know how to feel about. This is Robin Hood Sharpshooter. It is an uninkable 4-cost Ruby character card with 1 strength, 4 willpower. He quests for 2 and he has 1 ability. Whenever this character quests, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an action card with 6 cost or less and play it for free. Put the rest in your discard pile. Right off the bat, it dies to a lot of commonly used removal like Brawl. You also have to fill your deck with actions you want to play. And to top it off, you're pumping your discard pile full of cards you might actually want to use. The one of the use cases though I could see is getting it to play Grab Your Sword for free, or filling up the discard pile with characters so that Chernobog gets a lot cheaper. We'll have to see. I've seen a lot of people really excited about this card, and I'm a bit on the fence, but I do think there's going to be some weird, crazy interaction with this somewhere down the road that makes this just an insane card. Very interesting design. Okay, finally, the last card. This is Seven Dwarves Mine Secure Fortress. It is an inkable 2-cost steel location card with a move cost of 2 and 6 willpower. It has 1 passive lore and 1 ability. During your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. If the moved character here is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. This is going right into my Snow Knight deck. It has potential. The only downsides though is that I think it has a fairly expensive move cost, In the lower health, then it also has lower health than a lot of other locations, so that's not great, but regardless, I'm excited to try it out. Well, okay, that was the final 137 cards in Shimmering Skies. Why did I do this all in one video? Oh my god. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe to help support the Sorcerer's Hat. I post new videos all about Lorcana every single Friday, and I hope to see you again soon. Shimmering Skies comes out next week. How exciting. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go get ready to go to D23 and Disneyland. I will have a new video for you next Friday, though. Bye-bye. Love ya.